All right, I'll put them to record. Did you want to do some sort of intro? Oh, God.
Hello!
Fuck me.
Welcome to the video featuring sports psychologist Amelia and Callum.
Beautiful. So we just wanted to cover some subjects. We each put out a thing just saying if anyone had any questions. Most of you are incredibly unhelpful. Some of you were helpful. So we have a couple of questions we'll answer. This video shouldn't be excessively long. So we'll just answer some briefly, some probably in a bit more detail, chat shit, and then try and get us all to a point. Probably work.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
we
Whose
cover-
question first?
Amelia's?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so first question I got was, should coaches adapt themselves to different personality types, and if so, how?
Do you want to do this from like each? Because obviously our perspective is going to come from like experience of how we have or how we've tried. And then what's your take on it first? I'm assuming the answer is probably yes.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Kind of like everyone's so individual and so different. So any aspect of life, you're going to have to treat it differently for each person. Like if you've got a friend that's upset, you're not going to treat them the same way as if a family member is upset or if another friend was upset. Everyone is so individual. So I think the same goes for coaches and their lifters. There might be a lifter that's been more introvert and needs to be dealt with in a different way. And some might be dealt with better, literally being called up and saying, look, you need to do this. Some might not like that.
Some like to be screamed at, some don't.
I think we had this conversation on a previous podcast and some of the chats, like the specifics of the fact that not only are they individual in like what cues you want to give them, you're not individual in what kind of feedback they want. Some people want heavy levels of criticism, some people need sandwiched them within some sort of positive between, and some people literally don't have time to listen to a positive. They're not even interested.
Yeah. I think the good way to think about those are two different things. Firstly is game day. So on a powerlifting meet, you'll have the biggest difference in type of people. So like, for example, Callum may thrive off of, I'm not saying he does, but he may thrive off of playing around a numbers game. He might thrive off of someone saying, negative stuff in terms of like, come on, like do better than you did last time, like you need to show up today. Whereas somebody else may thrive off the fact of downplaying it, not putting too much pressure on, and sort of sugarcoating things a little bit. So that's a massive.
Literally, you'll have the people who all they want to hear is like, you've done this 1,000 times, you know what you're doing, simple stuff.
Yeah, easy work. Don't even have the headphones on, just have a little chat. Like,
then you've got the other people who are like, this is what we came for.
Yeah,
go home.
Scream, let's go, come on, like, focus. There's one extreme to the other. And for example, as well, like me personally, I find cues very difficult to understand personally. I am very much a visual learner, so I need cues to be given to me from Callum in a very different way. Yeah, like literally either poke me or a video, etc. So, of course, different lifters need different cues.
Going off of that, obviously they asked how as well. So we've all agreed like it kind of is important. Everyone is different. As you guys are the coaches here, like what do you think is an approach you would take to make sure you know the personality of your lifters?
I think, there's two ways. So early on, you start the communication, you're trying to figure out what that person actually responds to. Realistically, if you don't know how they respond, you haven't taken any time to get to know the person. The second bit is you have to take the time to get to know the person over time. You do not know that day one.
And I think it's really important. This is really simple. It's probably glossed over quite a lot. Why do they do powerlifting? That would be my number one question. Yeah. Why do you do this? Do you do this because you want to be competitive? Do you do this because it is just something that's good for you for your mental health? What is your reasons? And then that will actually straight up change the way I approach things with them, because as much as the sport will always be serious, if it is something that you just do because you enjoy it and it's a hobby and it's good for your mental health, I'm not going to put so much pressure on you because it's not needed.
There's leniency in areas that you need it. Whereas if someone comes up and they're like, I want to be number one in the world, I'm like, well, I'm going to hold you to that standard then. Or they could set like, there's also knowing between, there's also a reading between the lines with someone who's like, I want to be the very best. But at the same time, they actually, as much as they want it, they aren't ready to be held at that level. As much as that's their answer.
Yeah, it takes time to get to know
what they're capable of and what they need.
What would you say to an athlete? I'm just like going off this question now. What do you say to an athlete who kind of said that they wanted to be the best in the world, but they didn't respond well to like the harsher
I think there's a lot of examples of different types of, like, you don't have to be harsh on some of them to
Yeah.
be the best, by any means. Like, there are lifters and other, in fact, there's a video that was done, we were watching different ones, but the stuff that A7's put out, and you look at someone like Joy Imani, she's not after harsh critique, give her something simple, give her the work to do, simple, head down, that's it, not fast. But then there's people who, like, they want to know that every little detail. To be great is pushing the person to what works for them best. That's not to say pushing them the same way works for everyone.
Yeah, you can still you can still have an athlete that will be really good in their weight class and want to be really good in their weight class, and you know this is important to them, but not scrutinize them.
Also, somehow you've become interviewer, so more to ask you specifically. So if you were to approach this from looking at an athlete, what's the first things that you would want to take into account looking at an athlete, a sports person, whatever, and how you're going to be addressing them?
I think, like you said, there's two sides of it. So as a psychologist looking inward, you're going to have to look at not only the athlete, but the coach's approach. I think what Shah said about why they're in powerlifting or the sport initially is really, really important. And that's something you need to get down and understand and get them to understand. But it's also a case of kind of, like you said, knowing them as a person, keeping a professional boundary, but also get to know a bit about their personal life, about what makes them tick. And it doesn't have to be the traumas of their past or anything like that. It could be the incentives they like to train with and things like that. So I think where there are opportunities for you to categorize people, like type A personality, type B personality, etc., and you can make some sort of similar blocks for people that have somewhat similar personalities, there are always going to be something you have to tweak. So it could be a case of making black and white things. So this person's type A personality, but then we'll change this bit because they wouldn't like that and they wouldn't like that. So that makes it easier for the coaches. But as long as the coaches understand that there will be tweaks, I think there's a lot of room to grow on both sides of it.
Yeah, I think that takes a degree of honesty of a coach as well, to say when they have experience of dealing with different personalities as well. Like if you haven't dealt with that incredibly broad terminology, but a very high maintenance lift who wants every single bit of detail, and if you haven't dealt with that completely laid back personality, you have to deal with a bit of everyone in different ways to understand how people react to different things. Like early days coaching, you have a blanket approach to some degree and you try to adjust it, but you're adjusting from what your baseline was.
Yeah.
We're going to absolutely hammer this question into the ground. So what's your next question?
I thought that. You get them joking.
Sure.
Yeah, it's fine. Next question.
How to increase focus when lifting?
Oh, I really like this question.
Turn the lights on.
No, I really like this question for a few different reasons, because I hate to be this person, but what is focus for some people? Because sometimes you can overthink the movement and then lose your focus, depending on the personality. And sometimes, obviously, you need to think about the lift, blah blah blah. But there's two versions to two different people. Sometimes you can overhype. So I really like that question for that reason, really. But
I think trying to address, like, exactly as you say, so just understanding, if you're saying about focus, how much of that focus is internal or external, like what is it you're actually trying to achieve? If it's, okay, how do you focus on trying to achieve specific things within a lift that's a technical movement that you're not aware of? Well, if you're a newbie lifter, make sure that you know exactly what you're going in to try to do, make sure that you're applying it through your warm-ups, make sure that you're consistent in what you're trying to apply.
Minimal cues, not trying to think of 700 things.
Like having that baseline of what you need to do. And if you're someone who's more experienced, then it's making sure that you're focused in like effort and making sure that you're in that state of mind where you're going to put in a high level of effort. And that's what you get into the hype conversation. So exactly what you say, depends what focus means. Is focus execution or is focus effort?
Yeah, and moving off of that, it's something that I say to a lot of the athletes that I speak to or work with. If they say focus is their problem, is that I will categorize it into two main types of focus if we're talking about just their lifts, because there's obviously so many different other types. But I'll ask, do you think it's more of an emotional focus problem or attentional focus problem? And by that, I mean, attentional focus is a general lack of concentration and being able to keep concentrated on what you're doing at the time. Whereas the emotional focus was something more like being able to hone in your emotions and control them for that period of time. Because a lot of people do work with emotions like yourself when you lift, and sometimes
I
don't at all.
like yourself.
Ever when you lift, don't have to be emotionally controlled. Don't get angry or distracted.
No, I would say no, but I'd say your main focus is to be emotional,
yeah.
whereas my main focus is not being a squirrel.
You're a perfect example, because one of you focuses more on the emotional focus side of things, which is what you would work on, whereas Shah, you work on like the attentional focus. Like athletes, we usually split into one of two parts.
Lauren's literally is that shiny? And then I'm the please don't make me cry.
But don't get me wrong, that still crosses over, because sometimes Callum will be on his phone coaching, and it's like, get off your phone, you need to be here in the moment.
Yeah,
yeah,
they different cross.
That anger in that session.
Or even emotionally invested, you can get.
Yeah.
Because I was having this conversation with someone today who actually messaged me after this. Just before this, and we were talking about how around training, because it's an emotive thing for some people. People say about it being their therapy or whatever the purpose of it is. That becomes an emotionally vulnerable thing, and so anyone who interferes with that can piss you off so quick. Like, I'm very thin-skinned if you annoy me while I'm being emotional in training.
And it can take over your day.
Yeah, we've all seen this.
Yeah, it can take over your day if you have if you're invested in a session and it goes bad. That could be your entire day gone unless it's dealt with by the coach or you.
Yeah.
In an appropriate way for the lifter. I think that's definitely.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the actual question was how. I think we all know what focus is now, but how?
We're going to tangent so much. Anyone watching this being like, great question, sorry. What's the answer? Just forward 15 minutes, we probably get there.
And then 5 minutes more.
Answer it.
I just like let's talk about that.
Yeah, so how do you increase?
So I separated it because obviously it's not one approach. And it's not one approach for each person. Like the personality question, everything's going to be different. But if we're looking at it, that's a bit of a cop-out. So if you're looking at it with a blanket approach, you have to, if you're looking at emotional focus, let's say, and I'd say a lot of it is understanding where the emotion is coming from. A lot of it is learning how to use your emotion with the right percentages that you know it won't creep into attentional focus loss. Whereas with the attentional focus, it's a bit tougher, because if you are someone who generally does lose focus in most things, then it is more of a personality trait than a state situation. So I think it's a sense of just trying to condition yourself out of that.
Would there be specific drills or activities that you would focus, like you personally dealing
just
with?
Before going forward, I was going to say there's something that you said that kind of answers Lauren's question. So about attentional. So if you take someone like me, I find it very difficult to switch off and focus on training. The simplicity of just saying like, okay, let's take away external stimulus. So computer gets the screen switched off, phone, like put it down, turn it off, like turn it onto airplane mode. Taking away external stimulus is going to take away from focus, if that's what we're talking about. And then if it's emotive, then the same thing still applies to me, because if let's say that like we weren't living together at the moment, and I was just about to train, and Shah started messaging me like, I hate training, I hate lifting. Well, I'm not saying you would never do this, but if you did, that to my emotional state, that I also find that difficult. And so again, taking away the things that let that happen, or just withdrawing yourself. So if you were training, maybe stepping away from other people so you can do your session of focus and be where you need to be. Sometimes it is as simple as literally whatever the risk is that interferes with focus, remove it.
Yeah, so that's effectively an activity that you'd practice, or an exercise you'd practice.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. Unfortunately, with some instances, obviously, you can do your best, but you can't turn off life, if you know what I mean. So there's some exercises that you can do past that. There's some exercises you can do past that to obviously get past the focus problem. So there are some, if you're looking at attentional focus, just a simple thing is that you can find a focal point when you're lifting, obviously assuming it won't mess up any sort of form. Or if it does, then find a focal point before you're lifting, and as you're ready, getting ready to set up, focus on that, just hone into it. So find a spot on the wall, find a weight, find something that's not moving, because you don't really want to, let it move.
What was it? It was the bug. Fucked off again.
Yeah.
I was focusing on the bug.
We're literally focusing on the bug.
Don't do that.
I think one thing that I find works really well with lifters that I personally don't really do this, but lifters that I've dealt with, is visualization. And what I mean by that is, if I'm messaging a client and they're about to bench I will say, remember last week when you hit such a really nice light touch? For them, this person in particular, that works great because they're overthinking and the only thing they're thinking of is how they bench. Not, oh, am I going to hit this? Is this a heavy weight? Oh, how many reps do I need? If there's someone who panics in the moment, that helps massively. It's really simple visualization.
No, I completely agree. So I when I have an athlete that has normally quite high anxiety towards their sport or to lifting or something like that, it's visualization and imagery is normally something that's quite productive to do. So for example, if there was a lifter and they're about to deadlift, you say, okay, imagine it's comp, and that would be the imagery side of it, but don't think about if this is obviously if they're a bit more advanced, because if they're further closer to starting, that makes sense. If they've just started lifting,
I'm closer to starting.
Lifting. I have 2 degrees, I promise. Then obviously they need and then obviously they need to focus on their cues. But if they are a more developed athlete, then trying to take them away from thinking so mechanically about what they're doing and rather think about the end result. So don't think about the movement of doing it, think about the fact you're lifting up, just the lifting up movement for like a deadlift or the pushing movement for the bench, and just see that, and a lot of the time that just takes away the kind of anxiety surrounding lift.
So as much as all of these questions are very subjective to everyone, the main thing is creating an exercise or a drill that you can progress and that is easy for you to do. I think the best.
I think effectively you said, so how do I do this? Find out how to do it and keep doing it. Which like find out what works, do it more. That's basically been our answer.
Basically for
smart people.
But the things that are ridiculous that work, like I spoke to Jim Eli from RTS, and he literally was like, between your squat sets, sit down and look at the bar, do nothing else.
Yeah,
that made a embarrassing amount of difference. It was like, okay, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, so and I mean, down to really, both me and Callum have done this for ourselves, because obviously we're athletes, not just coaches. I know that you've done this, and I do it.
No.
Either right, one of 2 things.
Didn't do it either.
No. Right, one of 2 things. Either a quote that inspires you and it's on your phone screen, or cues for lifting. So that way you look at the phone, look for your program or for the time. You have that. That's something that it's easy, but it's a reminder of the simple things. So basically keep it simple, and something that's easy for you to maintain, I would say.
Absolutely. Something I think is really effective, which I think obviously something I think is really effective.
What's effective? Come on.
Well, no.
What's the pom-pom?
I feel like you're struggling with focus.
So I'm going to do this exercise now.
You should try turning off your phone and the screen.
Yeah, and visualise it. What was that?
Okay, so that's effective. I'm only saying it one more time. Is taking a few breaths before a lift. It can be, find the amount that's right for you. So between 3 and 5, I think, is a really good number. You guys, focus question. Come on. Between 3 and 5 is a really good number. Do your visualization then, not during your lift, so you can still focus on the simple key points. So stepping up to the bar, setting your feet, things like that. But just beforehand, spend a few seconds, close your eyes if it's easy, then focusing on a point, and really just get yourself in like the mind and body of what you're about to do. So just take a few breaths, do your visualization and your cue points then, and then go into it kind of as a blank slate.
Yeah, I actually want to fanboy right now. Something that Bobby Butters and Callum said on a podcast once that I listened to a while back was having a particular song as well that is only your top lift song. So you do not put that song on. You don't listen to that song at any other point in your training, in your
Life.
And then it's kind of, say again?
It can help you time your lift as well.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
You put that on, it's like, okay, wrist rep's gone at the start of the film.
And it's like this, all right, game face on. Like, without having to say anything to yourself, you just know that when that music's on, yeah, you're...
Absolutely, that works for, like, a bunch of people.
Sure, on to the next question.
Next question.
Are we doing my ones? Okay.
Yeah,
we'll do all yours, then I'll do mine after.
Okay. This one is not very relevant to me. This one's just ideas to keep active with no home gym. So I think it's not very sports psych related.
Is it mental activity? Crosswords.
Short and simple. Something you literally never put time into, go invest some time into it. Like, if it's something you were like interested in, photography shit that we're getting obsessed with, go invest some time in it, go learn about it. If you like, there's nothing to do, go find something completely new and challenge yourself. You probably, I'm gonna get grief for this. Some people are still working, I know, but the people who aren't, you have time now that you didn't have, go do something with it. Just find something that you were interested in a little, find out if you actually care about it or not, and then put some time into it.
Yeah, I feel like physical activity, you can still do a lot of stuff, bodyweight stuff, so. Just
not running, because Shah gets injured for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I was about to say, like, I was speaking to this about somebody. I was speaking about this to somebody the other day. Words, that if you are trying to do a new activity, if you're trying to learn a new activity, don't do it because it's a trend or because you think it will be good for you, because you will not progress in the way that you want to. I don't like running anymore. I used to love it. I don't like it anymore. Like, it's just not me. And so I went on a run and I hated it. And my friend runs every day. She does really long runs. I spoke to her and she said, if you don't enjoy it, you will not get that much better at it because you will not put the effort into it like something that you will enjoy.
Sure.
So I think
devil's advocate. The trends in general are a good way to be introduced to things that you probably never would have tried. Like, I like the fact that everyone got so hot on running, tried it twice. Turns out I like it, just shit it, so don't do it. Turns out you hate it, won't ever do it again.
And I'm too old for it.
So, okay.
I'm not trying to push it because it's a trend, I agree.
No, I agree. With, like, try it, obviously, but that's how you find out if you enjoy it enough to pursue it. If you try it and hate it, like you said, you're not going to carry on do it.
Leave that alone.
But I would also say, be a little bit open-minded in this time period. Because see, it's not. I don't mean 2020. I mean, I mean with what's going on. Okay, cool. I only like heavy lifting. Okay, well you can't heavy lift, so
tough shit.
Yeah, like you have to be. You can't just be like, oh, I don't enjoy anything else. Let's not do anything.
Yeah,
you kind of.
There will be other things you enjoy. Like, I think that's a good point. Maybe not kind of point about not enjoying something, but not being good at it. So try. Not a good point to live off.
I'm fully like that. Froze loads while you were talking. But I'm fully of the opinion. So you might find it, be like, I really like this, but it doesn't. So it depends if you want to do something to kill some time and have something to do with physical activity. If you're going to try to quantify everything and make it a outcome-based goal, then you're going to give yourself help.
Yeah.
Some things just do for fun. God forbid I said that. Who am I? I never do anything just for fun, ever. It's all quantifiable. Progress or die. No, okay. It's not on this one. It's on my hoodie.
It's literally on your hoodie. Okay, cool. So next question.
Yeah, less death.
Did you change?
I took my hoodie off. I'm boiling in this room.
Are you in the room? What's next? Go.
This is just for you, which means we can get distracted by shiny things again. What is the path to becoming a sports psychologist like? I'm reading it out and you're fully trying to read it still. Do you not trust me?
What is it like after uni? Or?
Yeah, like from uni onwards, or you could explain what course you did, all that sort of stuff.
Okay, so I'll briefly talk about, and briefly for me is a hard thing to do. So
I don't believe you.
And I'm done. No, so my undergrad was actually in straight psychology. It wasn't until my master's that I was
laughing because you picked her phone up and she's going to be a magpie.
No, because I thought I got a question.
So my undergrad's actually in psychology. I then did my master's in sports psychology. So if you want to become a sports psychologist afterwards, there are a couple different routes you can take. So obviously you can go down more of the experience route and just go straight into working with people. That is if you think you've got a good enough basis of knowledge and experience of working with people. So I've worked in a few schools with like teachers' sports, things like that. I've been in a lot of sports teams myself. I've got quite a good emotional intelligence when working with people. I didn't take the more academic route, which you can do, which is the BASES route. So it's BASES, and that organisation has coined the term sports psychologist. So that is an extra 2 years of study, and you essentially work with a psychologist.
On top of your masters. So
on top of your masters. So your masters is BPS stage 1, sports psychology, and the BASES training is BPS stage 2.
Right.
So that is a couple more years, and that's working while also studying, and that's working with like a professor to work back to. So that is a route you can take, and that's the only route you can take to coin yourself as a sports psychologist. Whereas if you take the other route, obviously there are other terms you can use. So like myself, I'm a sports performance psychology consultant, whatever like words you want to use. They're the same thing, just different routes. It depends what you feel is best for you.
Okay.
Do you find it harder to motivate people when you're feeling less motivated yourself? I feel like this is a quite succinct question that we'll make long.
Yes.
In short, yeah, sometimes. Not always. I can have a day where I don't want to do any of my training or anything, but I still they're really separate to me. Like someone else's motivation, I would get really excited for. My own sometimes.
I was going to say what I was going to say. So I can have the worst training session, and I'll have a 2-minute conversation with someone, and I'm well excited. It's just I would say that everybody else keeps me motivated. So if I, for some reason, let's say, I don't know, a pop-apocalypse. How do I say it?
Not like that.
Okay. So let's say I couldn't talk to like some of my lifters for 2 days. My motivation would be lower because I haven't had them stimulate me, vice versa. Like it helps both, I think. Like I don't really talk about my lifting to them, to be honest. That's all. But I don't know. Like I get excited about their lifting, so it makes me excited about my lifting. So I think I don't find it trouble at all. And if I've had a bad day,
if it's your, you know, those days where it's like absolute exhaustion, though, where it's like I'm just tired.
Oh, like because you've had
then I think
a lot of.
I wouldn't, because I don't think it would reflect, but I'd be interested to see. I think you can quantify it or anything, but like level of enthusiasm, I wonder if it actually takes an impact. I don't feel like it does, but I think it'll be almost impossible to deny that there must be some influence.
I think
I think it comes down to obviously whether you enjoy your job as well. I enjoy it. So.
Oh yeah. I think it's a bit.
What do you think?
I think it's like it is like specifically for the coaches to their clients, or is it just generally like?
You have to be. Sometimes you're a motivator for people, whether it's like you're a soundboard, whatever. Do you find?
So I think there's two answers to it. I think yes, because you're always going to have days where it's just too much, and sometimes you need to take a step back for yourself, because if you are emotionally drained, I like the picture of the 2 batteries, if you've seen it, where one has no battery and one has full battery, and the one with full battery can give juice to the one that has none, but vice versa, it doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? So you can have days where obviously you've got nothing to give, but equally, if you're someone else's motivator, it's a sense of having an emotional boundaries. So if you're able to separate your emotions to their emotions, then I think 8, 9 out of 10 times you can motivate people when you may not be motivated yourself, because you can distinguish between their emotions, their experience, and your own. So it's I think a sense of.
I'd say realistically, there's probably. I said like just one day in a month where there's a lot of external factors, and that's enough to make it a hard day to just be high-end excited, but I don't think it seems to be very often, and usually it's differentiated.
I mean, I come from a personal training background, motivating the people that do not even want to be in the room, let alone squat, let alone deadlift. So for me, to motivate a lifter is nowhere near what I've had to do. So
I think it's like
different, because
without being a knob, because it's online as well, you're not there in a physical presence that you can do a lot of that. Like not all of the conversations are going to be via voice note, not all of it's going to be over the phone. So because some of it's like is written, you can still invest in that moment, even if you're emotionally drained outside of it. So, like I said, it's that differentiation. Like, my attitude doesn't have to reflect what I like to do in my job.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
it can be. Yeah, I mean, because you can. I might be having a bad day. It doesn't reflect in a text message.
I've literally coached on days at competitions, like just after a family death, and no one's known about it. And you can you invest yourself in that moment enough that nothing else reflects.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, in my view, like I say, like coaching powerlifters who want to be powerlifters, it's really fun, and to motivate them is not nowhere near what I've had to do in the past. So it's nice to train people who want to train within a element. There'll always be days where you need picking up and you need a bit more motivation, but you know, I've never ever had someone be like, I don't want to train. All right, yeah, okay, I don't want to train. I'm not having a good day today, but I don't want to powerlift anymore. Like, you know, that might be an experience thing. I may have that in the next few years, but I have had, you know, people not want to train, and you know, it's my job to keep them wanting to motivated to train, but nothing like, oh, I just skipped a session. I skipped 4 sessions, you know, or.
I just looked at all the last questions. Did you have any other questions, or was that all you had?
Why the mental side of training?
Oh, my favourite question. Why the mental? Because it's.
I was born mental. I will die mental. The end.
It lags a bit, and I just thought you said I was born mental. I will die.
The end.
Oh, this gets dark real easy. Just in short, to reply to that, if you don't think the psychology of lifting matters, you're gonna be fucked long term in your lifting. Like, if you don't take the time to appreciating it, you're a dickhead. I mean, that's as harshly as it sounds.
Yeah, there are people.
I think in a less harsh way, in a less Callum way, I'm gonna say, if you compare it to someone who's running, they always say you hit a wall and it's a mental barrier, you just need to get past it. Kind of the mental side of training, the psychology behind it, is the tool you need to get rid of that wall, to knock it down.
Like, it is always a factor in every way. And the people who say like, oh yeah, but some people just switch off, they just relax. That is still psychology. Like, how you're approaching it is still psychology. Being too minimalist wouldn't pay off too well.
Yeah, and there's some people, don't get rid, that's personality trait.
Yeah.
There's some people that, I mean, we've been watching tons of the CrossFit Games, and that is an absolute prime example.
Yeah.
There are some people.
Sarah
there are some people like Sarah who
is like you,
is like me, and can have an absolute mess around, and 2 seconds later switch on, she's in it. Yeah. And then there's another person who, what's her name, Cara Webb, who needs to switch on for like an hour before she trains. So no matter what it is, how minimalistic it looks and how big it looks, there's always an element of psychology.
The reason I address
there's some power that Sarah's got to switch it on and off. Like, of course.
I'll address that with the reason I'll address that with a degree of irritation is because I've had people say that it doesn't matter, and I think that's really dumb.
Yeah, I feel that on a heavy basis.
I mean, it's literally a profession. Someone's like, "Oh, it doesn't matter." I'm like, "You're an idiot." Like, of course it matters.
But no, I completely agree with what you were saying there, Shah, and I think
probably not me. See how it is.
No, you said no. Both you said. But there's
if not, like, people wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah. But I think like you guys who are obviously more accomplished lifters, that you're still. But not people. No, I'm joking. More accomplished lifters.
I would love that to be the end of the video.
I think obviously you guys are more accomplished lifters, but you still train. You still obviously do your training. You're not going to be like, I'm going to stop there. Like with the psychology of it, you feel like you've accomplished a technique well and it's helping. You're not just going to go, I'm done with the psychology of it now. It's something that you can continuously train and help with the physical side of training.
Literally.
And I mean, I'm reading the book Champion's Mindset to be, and everyone says the same thing. Every psychology that has met someone who is great now or who is one of the best in their field, it's always because they've had a strong mindset and the psychology has been there. It's not because they've had the talent. And I'm a firm believer in your head is stronger than your talent. You can be have no like a minimal amount of talent and become the best.
I have no talent. I'm gonna make it.
I was
I'm
about to say something.
I hope she won't mind, but I'm talking to Bobby at the moment, who's looking at doing her PhD into
two shout-outs.
I have so much time for Bobby in psychology. Anything with psychology, I'll always bring Bobby up. But talking about her PhD that she wants to do, exploring the mental grit of lifters and elite lifters, and like how you can actually show the relationship between a certain mindset that you can have before you start lifting and where that takes you long term.
Was that a question, or are you just telling me?
No, I was saying that, like, literally following up what she said.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
And I was surprised so much because you've read it as well. Of course you've read the book. So again?
It was the fact that I got distracted by the fact she started blowing into her cheeks and then looked off to one side and then just fucking magpies. Both of you are magpies.
What's next?
I saw the one time.
I was opening my door, so I looked at it. And the window's open, so I looked at it.
What you got? You're looking at stories. This isn't it.
Oh.
What are you doing?
Leave me alone. Right. Okay, I'm here.
Okay.
Salute. That was the question. Not sure why.
Salute or salute?
You told us you had one just before this.
No, I didn't. I said I've got rubbish ones.
You said someone asked you last week a question that you thought you could answer.
Oh, sorry.
Hello.
Okay, I didn't actually get asked this recently, but anyway. What? How much of powerlifting as a sport is mental and physical?
Oh, no.
I mean, powerlifting is a physical sport. I think it just goes by what we've literally just said in terms of
every single person knows the mentality behind it.
Yeah, and what level of
lifting
you're at and the type of athlete you are.
Basically, if you ask any elite lifter, what's your mindset towards lifting, they'll have an answer. Whether or not that's an answer that's on the end of the spectrum, they have an answer.
And a lot of it won't correlate. A lot of it will be miles different. Yeah, you look at Joy, can't say her last name, Joy Lamani, and you look at Bobby Butters. They could not be further away from each other in terms of mindset.
1.25 of the same title.
There we go. Like, so, and they both get into their own zone when they're about to lift.
And that's number 1 and 2 of the WPF females right now.
Shout out again.
And they're so different. I'll message after, like, you feature it too much.
All the love.
Callum Fangirl. But literally, there is no lifter. I literally don't think I've ever met a lifter that's like, oh, I just lift. Like, even if they just lift, they'll talk about how that is what they do. As in, like, oh, I just switch off. It's there, like, it's relaxing, whatever. It's not just a zero. It doesn't register as a zero anyway.
The people that are zero are people that just go to the gym because they're supposed to go to the gym twice a week.
It tends to be exercise.
And it's not lifting, really.
You can hear that.
Even the people that just go to the gym, like, even if they don't realize it, there's going to be a mental element to their training, like there is to anything. They're going to put on music, and that will be a way that they can focus, and they won't think that's anything to do with anything. But some people can't listen to the music in the gym. So, like, I think it's a sense of how willing you are to accept that the mental side of training and psychology does have an impact, and then you can progress from there once you've accepted it.
And that's what we want to discuss.
I'm trying to think of questions I have for Amelia.
Yeah, same. What the fuck you doing?
Yeah, clear.
Yeah, you can hear it. This is the content that people want.
Clickbait.
I just quit both my shoulders after that. Anything you could well, actually, we'll just throw it on there. So if people wanted to come find you and look for your content that you put out on general subjects, where could they find you?
So my Psych Instagram is @potstinks.
Sorry.
Potstinks. POTSWH.
Yes. Thanks. My name's Amelia Potter. I'm doing some thinking. That might change.
Right.
Just needed.
Stinks.
Oh, what child. Love it though.
It says that, doesn't it? Does it say pot stinks?
Pot stinks. Yeah, it does. Oh, and I'm trying to think of something else.
My professional thingy says pot stinks. Right, I'm gonna have to change that now after this video comes out. Thanks, guys.
It actually does, doesn't it? Oh, I'm just
say that. Thanks. Brain.
Right, say your account name again.
Potts thinks.
You're trying now.
I'm going back to actual business.
Oh, you do that.
No,
Boring.
I'm thinking of some of the questions we had over the last few weeks of us putting out those questions. And a few of them was about motivation in training, blah, 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 blah. Like just trying to think of some to chuck them immediately as well while we're here.
If you wanted to. Anything else you wanted to?
Oh, that was a question of what you remember.
You could. I don't remember shit.
Who was that?
I think we've answered a lot in a relative amount of detail,
sorry.
and we can do these again.
Yeah. Okay.
After that. Good answer. Okay.
Are you
Nice.
training?
Huh?
I think that's no. Are you enjoying training?
You're very laggy. Yes.
Are you enjoying training?
Absolutely.
Am I enjoying training?
Don't know.
Yes.
Good. Right. I'm glad we added that one.
It's my toe.
And if you heard any noise during this video that sounded just quite loud rumbling, that's because Charlotte was playing with the drawer that this is sat on the entire time.
That was.
Yeah, I literally, the whole time I tried to hold it with my foot, I was like, fucking stop. Magpie. Right, we'll
I was
leave it
playing
there.
with this as well the whole time.
Okay. Right, thank you.
Okay,
I'm going to
sorry,
stop the
everyone.
recording now.
Bye. Okay.
Well,
I
just the
wasn't gonna
recording.
edit out, just-
We'll just post it like that.